Barry Krauss, also an All-American at the University of Alabama on the football side, went on to play 10 years in the National Football League for the Colts. Barry Krauss, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Big year for the Crimson Tide. I don't think we've spoken since this team was able to capture another national title from Nick Saban.
No, it's another great year, and the thing that's so impressive about Nick Saban and the University of Alabama football program is the fact that it's so consistent. I mean, it's consistently doing well in recruiting. I think, number one the last 6 consecutive years, and just doing a phenomenal job. And you just got to give a lot of credit to, Coach Saban and his staff of being able to recruit and know exactly what these young men are looking for. And, it's changed a lot since, I came out of high school where, basically playing for Alabama was about it. I mean, you seemed like you couldn't get any higher than that. Sure, there was a little pie in the sky called the NFL, but it really wasn't publicized very much. But, these kids, they're looking beyond Alabama, and they're looking for an opportunity to get into the NFL and play for a great program. And, Nick has been able to do that. He markets well for these young men, and they believe that, they can achieve great things at the University of Alabama, help the program, but also help themselves move on to another level, which is obviously, their dream is to play in the NFL.
When you watch, and I believe it, are you still doing broadcasting? Are you still doing sidelines for the Colts? Am I correct?
No, I've been doing TV and radio for the Colts off and on for about 25 years. So, I've been doing the preseason TV games, and then really probably the last 5 or 6 consecutive years I've been co-hosting a post-game talk show for the Colts. So people will call in after the game, and we'll go on for anywhere from 3 to 4 hours after the game.
When we look at what Nick Saban brings to the next level, it seems like that this is a quick path to the National Football League. These kids, when Alabama's able to span that brand and go out and recruit, they come to the University of Alabama for, one, the tradition to be able to win, but it's also prepares you for that next level. What do you see in Nick Saban in that preparation phase for that next level that makes that transition so easier for a lot of these players?
Well, I think, obviously the coaching is at a higher level. I mean, he expects a lot out of you, a very disciplined program. He doesn't mess around. Once you're on, basically on the field, you got a job to do. And these coaches do a phenomenal job with techniques and strategies and really get into these kids' heads and teach them so many incredible things that are, transitional and advanced for, the NFL. Specifically, as Nick is, as I've watched when I was doing the sideline reporting for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I used to go out to practice and watch Nick, and Nick would work with mostly the defensive backs, and he was teaching them those angles, teaching them the technique, inside out, when to turn, these the techniques and through techniques and consistency, all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're producing well and you get the confidence up, and that's one of the things that, Nick has been able to do. But, just as an example of defensive backs, but, when you get to the NFL, it seems, and it is, basically a faster game. And the reason being is, you got number one, you got a lot of experience up there, but most of all, you know where you're going. In other words, you got great angles. I mean, you don't waste steps. You don't waste, angles. Everything is, basically expedited to get your job done, and that's what Nick has been able to do. I mean, he's been able to get a defense to be able to understand what they need to do to be successful. Techniques up front, defensive line with the swim moves, the power moves, the different games, and just executing at another level. And really, that's where it all comes down to Nick Saban and the coaching staff. They have high expectations once you get there. It's like you got a lot of work to do, and we can help mold you into, a great player at the University of Alabama. But, if you want to go to that next level, it's going to take a lot of effort on your part as well.
We are talking right now to the All-American linebacker at the University of Alabama. He was drafted in 1979 in the first round. He was a 6th overall pick by the Baltimore Colts. We're talking to Barry Krauss right now inside the game. And I do want to go back and talk about sort of that transition. When you look at Coach Bryant and you look at Nick Saban from a player perspective and now as an analyst, when you look at Nick Saban, what is the biggest similarity that you see between those two?
Well, I think you see greatness in both of them, and I think they do an incredible job at helping these young men come in and understand that there's something greater than themselves, and if they want to personally become greater than, become better football players or become better people, they can be a part of something that great. And when you do that, I mean, in other words, Nick and Coach Bryant did a great job at helping us see that vision overall and saying, hey, look, we want to be a part of that vision. Well, what's it going to take? It's going to take selflessness. I mean, you can't come in and think that you're going to be able to do it by yourself, and you got to understand what teamwork is and about commitment and sacrifice and all for that common goal. And that goal is to be successful, win national championships. And while you're doing that, as just becoming a better player and being a part of something special, great things happen to you and for you when you look at it. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're being looked at by the NFL. And next thing you know, there's an opportunity maybe for you to go to that next level. But I just think they both are great coaches in different eras, different types of coaching techniques back in. With Coach Bryant's, day, there was a different philosophy. Now Nick is tapping into that, and really, I think great coaches like a Nick Saban do a great job at, really developing great relationships with the players. Where it gets down to a point where you just don't want to disappoint Coach Saban. You really don't. You want to say, hey, look, Coach Saban's giving me this chance to play here. I'm going to prove to him, prove to the university that I'm good enough to play for him, and the last thing I want to do is disappoint him.
And I'm sure that was the same thing when you were a player here with Coach Bryant. You never wanted to disappoint for him to say, hey, Barry, come here a minute. That finger was probably something that a lot of players feared.
No, that is correct. I mean, it really is. When you think about all the great coaches, I swear they all have that in common. I remember talking to a couple of the players that went to the Super Bowl for the Indianapolis Colts under Coach Dungy, and I asked him, I said, what did Dungy have that other coaches didn't have? And he said, well, the big thing is that you didn't want to disappoint him, and you could tell if you did because all it took was a look. That's how he had gotten, where the players like, oh my gosh, he just looked at me like, oh, Coach, I didn't mean to let that happen, and I won't ever let it happen again. So, great coaches all have that. And like you said, Coach Bryant did that as well. Last thing you want to do is disappoint that man. You really didn't want to come to that sideline and, Coach, I didn't get the job done. You just never wanted to ever see that in his eyes or even have him say that to you. So, that is, I think, a serious part in a foundation of the success that you've seen through Coach Bryant and Nick Saban and many other great coaches.
Earlier this week, 2 days ago, I read a report. Ivy League moves to eliminate tackling at football practices, trying to eliminate contact. It doesn't seem just to be an Ivy League thing. It's starting to work its way throughout college football. What do you think Coach Bryant would have said if they would have said no contact, no tackling in practice?
He would have retired. He would have gotten out of football. That is football. I mean, it is. It's a contact sport. I mean, that's what it's about. It's being physical, and that's what the fans love. They love big hits. They love great tackles. They love the contact, but they also understand that there's a finesse and there's techniques and strategies that are part of it. But to take away tackling and that you're taking away the fundamental of what it's all about. It's a physical sport that that, as we could say, men really can be men. I mean, you can put a strap on the chin strap and go head to head with another man, and from a physical standpoint, he's going to defeat me, or else I'm going to defeat him, or else we're going to dominate. But the physicality of the game is just such a foundation of what it is now. So to see that being eroded is very disappointing, and I would hate to see it end up without that, or having to minimize that.
Can you, from a linebacker perspective, can you learn how to tackle properly without practicing contact?
I don't believe so. I think there are some things that you can do as far as walking through, but when you get in a full speed, I mean that's where really the rubber hits the road. Is full speed when you got an open field and a running back making some jukes at you. You're trying to make the tackle, and a lot of times it just happens. Sometimes the running back will try to run you over. Sometimes he wants to make some moves. Sometimes he wants to outrun you to the angle or take advantage of an angle. There's just so many variables in there. When I played, basically, I just learned how to hit with my face. I mean, I really did. I used to, you'd start the game off, even when I played in the NFL. My face mask was round when they put it on. By the end of the game, it was flattened out. I mean, that's just the way I did. I got my head across and made tackles, and big part of it was the shoulder hits, but also, I hit with my head, and that's the way it was back then. Now, obviously there's a lot of issues of concussions and stuff, but there's a lot of variables that go with that. Not just the helmet, but also your mouthpiece. I mean, think about that chin strap that's strapped to your jaw, which is not really connected to your skull, other than that one little gap into your area there. Supposedly, I guess when you hit somebody, that chin strap jars that jaw back into that soft tissue, which can contribute to concussions as well. And I know what they're trying to do, but I just think that there's a lot of variables in there. Sure, let's teach these kids how to use their shoulders. Let's teach these guys how to do that. And I think the NFL is doing a better job at really minimizing those helmet-to-helmet, kind of shots. And so you're seeing it out there, and, you're seeing less concussions, which is a great thing for the NFL and for all football.
You ever feel like, just from a defensive mind, that they're trying to make this game more offense, like that it's almost like against the defense, because you guys are limited so much, whether we're talking about, targeting, hits. It's I think it would have to go through a defensive mind, a linebacker, secondary guy, defensive lineman. Hey, am I going to get fined for this nasty hit that is just part of the game? You ever think that it's preventing defenses from being defenses?
Well, what sells are touchdowns. I mean, touchdowns, offenses, quarterbacks, good-looking quarterbacks score touchdowns, And so, yes, you've seen that transition where, players can't really have too much contact after 5 yards on wide receivers, so there's, it's all catered to the offense, which I understand. I mean, that's really what sells. I mean, you got a lot of people out there, broadcasters and critics that are out there saying, Alabama is actually boring. They don't score touchdowns. They just play with defense and yada yada, and so that's what a lot of people want to see is those score. They want to see high scores. They want to see. I think when you see it in the NBA, a lot of teams, they want to see, 3-pointers. Man, they love 3-pointers, the big, to be able to, make that happen. But, I just think that this, the NFL is going to continue to do that, minimize, and take away little bits about a defense. But what I love about the fact that, just using the example of the Super Bowl, what won that game? What was a big major part of that game for the Denver Broncos? It was called defense, and it was called a pass rush. It was called aggressive, and it was physical football. It's aggressive football, and I just loved it. In as much as the NFL or the rules committees, they want to change it and make it look, obviously more offensively minded. Hey, defense still wins championships.
Would you do it again? Looking at your football career, college, we know and what I'm trying to ask is we look at attack on football right now. You've got the president coming out and saying, if I had a son, I wouldn't let him play football. You got a lot of different former players saying, I wouldn't let my son play football. But looking at what you were able to do at Alabama, what you were able to do 12 years in the pros, would you do it again?
Heck yeah. I would love it. I actually drive around in my trunk. I got my helmet and shoulder pads. I'm hoping the Colts will call me back up, man. I just loved every bit of it. It was just this passion. I mean, when you get out on the football field, it's always great for me to go back out, and my son plays high school football, and to be able to go out there on the field and feel that. I mean, it was just a wonderful, football is so phenomenal. So, yes, I missed it so much. All the emotions. My favorite day was game day. That's when everything came together. I relished it from the time I got up in the morning. I rehearsed all the defensive schemes. I already played the game over and over before I even got to the stadium. And then to get taped up, and then to go out there and to play, because, this is, as a competitor, that's what you're looking for. You're looking to find their best, and you go against their best because you want to find out how good you are. And in that arena, there's going to be 2, 3, 4 big plays, great plays, defining moments that define the outcome of the game. And you want to be on the good side of those if you're going to be involved in the game. You want to be able to make that play. You want to have that success in that championship or whatever you're trying to do, as far as winning. And then at the end of the day, oh my gosh, I mean, you put it on the line. You're totally exhausted. Vince Lombardi has that one say, any great man's time is that time on the field when he's given it his best toward a common goal, and lays on the field of battle victorious. I mean, you just leave it out on the field and make it happen, and I would love it. I would love to go back out there. Unfortunately, my body won't allow it, but I encourage any kid, mostly, obviously boys, to go out there, and if they want to play football, I'm going to allow them to play football. My son, he had a choice. I remember my son getting hurt real quick, and my son hurt his neck a little bit, and he goes, Dad, I don't know about this. And so I got concerned, and I called my mom up, and I said, Mom, why did you allow my brother, your Bobby, my brother, and myself play football? And she said, because you wanted to. And I thought that was pretty powerful. And when kids want to do something, I think they should be allowed to do it. Now, if they get injured, that's a whole different game. That's when Mom and Dad maybe need to step in and go, hey, this is not looking good for you. But allow them to do it, because I'll tell you, I think kids will regret it. I think they'll turn around and go, you know what? I was never allowed to play football because my parents wouldn't allow me. I missed it. That's all I really wanted to do, and I don't want to ever see that out there. And I would encourage all parents and also kids, to play all the sports, play any of the sports. Try them and see what happens, and especially football. I'd love to see them out there playing football.
Final question. You were the 6th pick overall in the first round of the 1979 NFL Draft. The Combine was implemented in 1982. How did they evaluate players back then? What did you guys do? I think I've read that you would travel to different teams, and I could think about the stress of that, individual workouts. How did you go through the NFL evaluation process without the Combine?
Well, I'll tell you, one thing that upset Coach Bryant was that time and that period of transition, because a lot of us were missing a lot of classes, and he wanted us to finish school, number one. But that's what they would do. Like Philadelphia Eagles, they called me up and they said, hey, we're flying you to Philly. We'd like to evaluate you. Fine. I'd go from Philly to New York to the Jets to the Giants to Tampa Bay. I flew all over the country, and yes, most of the time it wasn't really a physical workout, which was surprising. But a lot of times it was just an interview. It was just talking about your body, getting a physical done. But that's the way you did it back then. So, from our standpoint, there was a couple guys that I did that with. It was Marty Lyons, who ended up was the number 1 draft pick for the Jets, and Tony Nathan, that ended up being a second, I think, round for the Miami Dolphins. We traveled, and that's just the way it was back then. So, having that Combine is really a phenomenal step, and I'm glad they kept it in Indianapolis. But to bring in the top 500 with the consistency of the workouts, the consistency of the doctors and the interviews, etc., it's all even. You know what I'm saying? It's all common. It's not, they worked out on outside, they worked out inside, they did this. Everybody gets the same evaluation of most of the players. So I think it's a great thing for the NFL. But yeah, when we were coming out, it was a whole different game.